It's like our first time doing this.
I mean, it's early in the morning. What do you expect? We're in the upside down. What do you go figure.
I even forgot to start the clubhouse room, so give me a second.
Give us some time, Matt. All right, we're getting around to it. All right, it says we're usually used to a 2:00 Pacific show, and now this is our first episode at 8. Okay,
without a doubt. So
and yes,
welcome back.
look at these guns. I've been working out, so relax, Matt. Okay, just chill.
All right. Well, welcome to the first episode of Creative Briefs. It's our weekly recap of the top news from the creator economy. This is already our first, what do they call those? Spinoffs from our original show, The Creative Economy, which we do on Wednesdays. So every week we're going to be bringing you a roundup of the latest news, commentary, interviews, and maybe some deep dives on key topics from the creator economy itself. We do go live on Fridays at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 10 a.m. That's 11 a.m. What is that?
8 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m.
So
well, that's you normally. Okay, that's your own problem. Like, why do you even bother sleeping, right? I mean,
but yes, you can. If you do want to find out more, we do live stream currently right now on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Clubhouse, and Twitter Spaces. So feel free to join us at any one of those places if you prefer listening or viewing. We also do our longer form post over at creativeeconomy.com. We'll also have the show notes and transcripts up as well. So very excited to be here today. We have a lot of news to get through. We only have an hour, so we're going to dive right into it. So Ken, I'm going to bring the slides up and let's run with it. So as we said, welcome back to Creative Briefs. Oh man, what did I just do? No. Can you still see my screen?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. All right. Great. So yeah, July 23rd, been a big week. By the way, you should follow us in real time because we do tweet out the links to all the articles that we do cover over at Creative Economy on Twitter. And of course, you can follow us in any of these other places as well, on Facebook, Flipboard, Twitch, and YouTube. We do appreciate your follow for sure. So let's get into the briefs. We've got some YouTube news. And by the way, just a little for background, I guess, on the format and what we're hoping to accomplish here ultimately is what we saw was that there was just too much news every week, and we were rushing to get through it all. And then more importantly, I think, is that we weren't giving those stories necessarily enough time to breathe, right? So we wanted to make sure we had some time to actually provide a little context and color on it. There's a lot of places to get links. Doesn't mean there's necessarily a lot of places to get the context and the other information that goes with it. So we're trying to make sure we can do more of that. So this is an old news article, but this is one of the artifacts of like what happens when the show is on Wednesday. But I think what we've seen, like sort of this horizontal escalation of features, for like monetization and other things happening in the ecosystem. And I think that's likely coming as well, like to the live streaming toolkit, right? So we saw tipping sort of make its way horizontally. We see audio rooms making its way horizontally. Now we see folks starting to borrow more and more from the Twitch ecosystem, because I think Twitch did a great job of building and fostering sort of community and also natively blending monetization in. And so YouTube has been working on this. We've been talking about it. They have like several new features that they're sort of basically aping from the Twitch universe. I believe in this release, it was clipping of videos or smaller pieces. There was a new, also, I should remember this. Again, what we're going to do next week is we're going to just start opening the tab. I was going to mention this. We should just open all the tabs and like scroll through the articles. But they did introduce, they're basically taking a few more of the tools out of the toolkit that Twitch was already offering.
Yeah, so they're doing super chats, they're doing super stickers, subscriptions, and now with super thanks. I mean, everything is just super, right? And but I mean, is it really that surprising though? I mean, to see YouTube copying Twitch. I mean, to your point here in this caption, anything you can do, I can do, and it's very much like how Twitter. Clubhouse comes out with social audio, and now Twitter Spaces and Facebook and like that.
Yeah, the subscriber only chats, VOD clips, and polls. That was the three.
Oh, right,
things
right.
that were brought in this week. There is also the thing you just mentioned. They also have now added, what did they call it? Super thanks.
Super thanks. Yes.
So previously, in case you didn't know, they had super chats and super stickers, but these were tools, monetization tools that only existed during live streams. So if you were like, say, a video producer who produced static content, you couldn't actually participate or benefit from that revenue. And so super thanks is actually a way to tip for static videos, not live streams. So, very interesting, but you're right, Ken. I mean, what works, right? And, I think like number one, it shows that there's a powerful engagement model for the fan. And then also to the extent that platforms want to keep these creators, they don't want to lose someone because like they don't have a feature. So feature parodies, it becomes an arms race pretty quickly, I think. And we're seeing that now that their eyes are open, that one, potentially their platform based earnings are maybe like under pressure, but also that there are tons of upstarts and there's a growing and inherent intent and demand from the creator to have more self control and independence, that they're starting to offer these tools. And so that they're all racing to sort of out creator each other.
But I mean, is it necessary? Are these tools actually going to be a differentiator between, you're getting people from Twitch to switch over to YouTube, right? Or to jump over to Facebook or anything like that? It's only a matter of time, I'd imagine, before Facebook starts saying, okay, we see everything that YouTube and Twitch does, and we're going to roll it out ourselves for creators, whether you're on Instagram or whether you're on Facebook or anything like that. And to a certain degree, Instagram's already doing that, which we will talk about a little bit later on in the show. But I remember something that Nicolina Moon mentioned to us when she was on our guest on our show 2 weeks ago, where she's saying, like, when we asked her, like, what is a differentiator between, like, what's a key differentiator that'll get you to switch to another platform or even try out a new platform, a new tech service or anything like that? And it wasn't these, low hanging fruit type of features, it was like, oh, super thanks or subscriptions or stickers or whatever. It was basically which platform is actually going to be able to give you that, help you drive an audience, right? That will help you connect with your community, your fans and your followers in a more strategic fashion, that'll actually, drive growth, as opposed to offering you just, these tools, right? It's like, oh, here's a fishing pole, right? It's to go fish, right? It's like, oh, but if you don't actually, but that's only part of the puzzle. Like, you actually have to teach these people how to actually fish in order to get the food, to get the sustenance that they need. And this is just like, I feel like this is table scraps right now, that what YouTube and Twitch are offering, versus something a little bit more.
YouTube, I mean, I think YouTube is still the clear leader. They pay the most out to everybody. Right?
But it depends on what you're doing on YouTube, right? If you're talking about streaming, like live streaming, I think Twitch still has may have an edge over YouTube but if you're doing just anything else on video, perhaps, then that's probably going to be better off with YouTube, right? And to the point, you shared with me this video somebody shared on that somebody posted on YouTube, I believe earlier this week, where they're saying, like, look, the YouTube has to change their algorithm, right? Because it's like, you have to do, and we can put that up on the screen later on, where people are just, they feel like they can't just do YouTube shorts. They can't just do YouTube videos, or they can't just do live streaming, because the algorithm just wants these creators to do all of it, right? And basically it's like, YouTube's like, hey, be the jack of all trades, but you're not really helping someone be a master of one particular thing, right? In order to dominate on YouTube.
I don't know. I mean, look, I don't know if it's their responsibility either, right? Like, you should choose the tools that make sense for you. And I think Epos Vox was saying, I saw a short he did the other day that one of the things that he thinks YouTube needs to change is that the requirements for the partner program,
yeah, that's the one I was talking about.
right,
Yeah,
like tend to be highly driven by sort of the video business, the static video business. But if you're encouraging shorts or if you're encouraging live streams, the credit and the amount of time and energy that the thresholds are maybe not quite feasible for everyone to achieve. But let's keep going. We do have a lot more to get through. There was some Clubhouse news. I think this one's yours, Ken.
it is. And as we're talking about Clubhouse earlier,
When you get this new ugly logo.
Well, dude, that's all part of the brand, right? It's their, somebody referred to it in a much more explicit manner. You can probably guess what that would be, but here's the gist of the news is like Clubhouse will no longer requires invites to access the audio based, I guess we're calling it still a social network of sorts. And this comes months, or probably more than nearly a year since it kind of really debuted in beta, months after it launched an Android app, finally, thankfully for me. So now since I'm on an Android phone, I can use it without resorting to lugging around my iPad like I have an old 80s style boombox.
When it stopped being cool, probably when they let you in.
Wow. Thanks. Woo! You're getting your digs in early. I mean,
you gotta start the day on the right foot.
Were you up at 3 a.m. working on those pot shots? I
was writing them in the sauna at 4:30.
Oh yeah, with your protein shake. I see. Right. But
now, is this 10 million? Was it a 10 million wait list, or was it 10 million people were using it so far?
That's not so. They have Clubhouse hasn't actually released official numbers per se. Like. Actually, sorry, I should backtrack. So, 10 million downloads in Android in just in the past 2 months, right? So that's coming from Clubhouse. But in terms of the overall usage and installs, a lot of that's coming from third-party tracker Sensor Tower, right? But yeah, I mean, you think about like this is probably 10 million people that are a combination of waitlist and also those that may have just like weren't on the waitlist. They're like, oh, you're on Android now. Okay, let me download it, right? Some people are like, I'll just wait for it to come out on a new platform or on Android or iOS, whatever, and they'll just sit on it and wait. And then once they hear news like this, they're like, oh, let me go to Clubhouse and download it, right? But if you remember when there was kind of like this invite only, this gated system, people were selling their invites on Clubhouse and they were going for hundreds, if not maybe thousands of dollars, right? And
I still have some that I'm willing to sell.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead and see how much you can get it for. I'm going to
NFT my Clubhouse invites and then sell those.
Very Inception. You're going to NFT your Clubhouse invites, and are you going to auction them off? And people are going to pay through it using a rally coin, using your AMA rally coin.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, totally. It's like, sure, why not?
There's no risk of money laundering. In that
but I mean, the thing is, like, Clubhouse is coming out now, and it's open to the public. And new rebrand. Is it too late for this for the platform? I mean, there's certainly a need for it. I mean, you look at there's a lot of these interesting programs that are coming on. There's a lot of good creators coming up with rooms, if you will, creative rooms on there. But you look at with Twitter Spaces and with Facebook, I mean, it's only a matter of time before like Microsoft rolls out something for LinkedIn. I mean, it could be LinkedIn rooms. I mean, good Lord. I mean, they might as well. I mean, they already have stories. Slack already has some sort of a social audio. And then we've been harping on this for many weeks in terms of, is this a defendable platform? And is it more like a feature? And I think now time will tell in terms of what Clubhouse is doing now that they're open to the public. It's like game on. Let's see how you stack up against the big tech folks and prove that this is more than just a shiny object that's part of your arsenal of tools. Like, this is a sustainable business and platform on its own.
So I just did share a link also to Ed Zitron.
Zitron, yep.
We're gonna have some words for him in a bit, but but he did have this other article that I had open that I actually hadn't even gotten to finish reading. I got through about half of it, but he said his Clubhouse the big stinker that nobody wants to talk about. So I think it hits on the points that you're mentioning, Ken. Someone anecdotally yesterday or 2 days ago, I was at something here in Denver, and someone was like, "Is Clubhouse going to survive?" I was like, "All right," and it was just someone who wasn't even like that active of a user, right? So, I think there are a lot of real reasonable questions to be asked here. We have I think the podcasting article. This one's yours.
Yep. So kind of harping on kind of go back with the Clubhouse news. Now we have talking about The Verge came out with this article earlier this week about the next social network trend is short form audio, right? It's the digestible. It's not unexpected to see this kind of a trend, with all the posts going from we're used to long form content. Now we're abbreviated to now super, like if you can't understand it in 15 seconds or less, forget it, move on. We're with like reels and shorts and everything like that. And so now we're doing this with audio as well. You have all these other services coming on. So who knows? Could we see like Clubhouse and Twitter and all these other guys competing with Racket, with a bunch of these other companies? Exactly. Yeah. And when I hear about these type of audio, like this audio renaissance of sorts, it kind of reminds me back into, I guess, the early 2000s when there was a service called Utterly, right? And that was kind of we were like, why would you post audio like your voice out there as a kind of like a note to yourself? And it seems like it's certainly taken off. So certainly an area to watch in terms of short form audio.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I've talked many times about what I call accessorized audio, and I think this is sort of somewhat speaking to that. Mm-hmm. By the way, like WhatsApp usage, like say, for example, like in Brazil, it's almost all voice. It's just small, short voice notes that people send to each other. They don't actually write. I know because I've seen my taxi driver going 9 miles an hour in Brazil doing audio notes to his friends. All right, what do we have here?
And you live to survive. That's
this
that's
one was yours. Interesting news from Tumblr.
Yeah, so Tumblr's not dead. Breaking news. Well, not really breaking news.
You're adding the E back.
So the thing with Tumblr, I mean, they were owned by Verizon, and actually they got bought by Yahoo for like $1 billion a few years back. Yahoo got bought by Verizon, and now Verizon's like, forget it, we're done with it. And the parent company of WordPress, bought Tumblr to save it. And so this is kind of a revival to kind of see, hey, can we do something with Tumblr? And so Tumblr is now saying, okay, well, we're gonna allow people to make money off of their posts. I mean, I don't know necessarily. I mean, for me, I'm not seeing a lot of people post on Tumblr. It's like, hey, come to my Tumblr site, and
I haven't seen a Tumblr blog in I don't know how long.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I think you look at this article from TechCrunch, and they're like, oh, it's specifically, they've specifically mentioned Gen Z, and of course, that just means we're old, dude. I mean, some people on here are a lot older than the others, so
definitely the people in the earlier time zones are way older.
So I mean, I think this is good. A good step for Tumblr. I mean, WordPress Automatic needs to make money off of Tumblr, and it could, this could be an interesting pivot for the site to see if to have a revival.
Just speak to what you were pointing out earlier, just sort of this horizontal sort of nature, that everyone's getting something, right? Yeah. Like in this arena. So yeah, I mean, I remember sitting on a flight once back to New York with David was sitting like 2 rows back from me. And he did not sleep the entire flight. It was pretty awesome.
Why are you stalking people and just observing them on a plane when they don't sleep?
Funny, like it's just one of those random, like I took a red eye back and I was trying to sleep, but then he was typing on his keyboard the whole time. So
he was sitting direct next to you.
He was like I could see him from my seat, and he was in the other aisle.
Oh, yeah, you weren't just like creepily looking back.
I would have talked to him at least if he was right next to me. Right? But no,
that was probably because he had just got like $1 billion from Marissa Mayer at the time. But speaking of viral sightings here, so Greg, this is something I think we've talked about, or at least you've brought up in the past. This is not necessarily hard news, but it highlights the I guess the concern or an issue that impacts the creator economy, especially those that are posting onto YouTube or Facebook or TikTok or anything like that.
Kevin Parry. And
yeah, Kevin Parry
was behind the scenes on what do you say? For those curious about the internet economy, this vid got 15 million views here, 28 million on TikTok, 30 million on an IG meme account, but I didn't make a penny from any of it.
Yeah, but of course he's in Canada. So as an article points out that I think he's like TikTok Canada doesn't have like a partner program there, right? So a lot of the work that he's doing is on his own. So he has to do a lot of self promotion. So I mean, I think there's a lot of nuance and complexity in terms of like, I mean, I think the headline is kind of like shouldn't necessarily be taken as a universal thing. It's like, this show could rack up like 1 billion views. God willing, but we're not, we don't make a cent of it. I mean, that's not necessarily the case. It could be based on the content. It could be based off of the circumstances in terms of how you monetize or whatever. Like, do you get any support from the platforms or anything like that? But I mean, I think the reality that creators face is that you're not guaranteed a payday for anything, right? It's like like something can blow up and it become
all that glitters is not gold, huh?
Exactly, right. And so so I think, but that's also something that maybe platforms should be aware of. These tech companies should be aware of. Is like, how do you be more transparent in helping creators better understand how, when, and how could they make money? Not necessarily how to game the algorithm, but help them understand. It's like, well, one thing is not, these things aren't syncing. How do we figure this out? So they are also not impacted mentally as well. Yeah. Moving along, man, I keep getting all of these, man. It's like,
I mean, you put all of yours together here.
I just want to keep talking, right?
And let's just be clear. The goal of the show is not to have more news articles. I think it's have more time.
Hey, this is the same as before we decided to break things up. Okay.
So my guess is we should reduce the number of things we cover.
Well,
we're still good on time. We're just 9:24.
Yeah, I mean, come on. So this is one. Greg, you are an Elgato fanboy. I mean, your post to me, your text to me are basically
my toilet seat cover is an Elgato face
I'm pretty sure you have like lighting and everything on there, right? But Elgato just announced a bunch of new features on coming out, or that new products that are coming out that are available now. That there are this new Stream Deck, but also what's most important here is that they have a new webcam, right? So those that don't want to shell out hundreds of, or nearly thousands of dollars for a DSLR to get the kind of quality that I have, unlike Greg, so you might as well you can spend just $200 for it, and then
mine is on the way, by the way. So you will be able to see what the Elgato face cam looks like.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, Greg, to that point, is like you didn't want to. I mean, you already have a DSLR. We're looking at your DSLR. But you didn't want to buy another one. Yeah. And of course you can get like a standard webcam like this, but it's not going to have the same quality as others. And I think for those that are on Twitch and YouTube and video streamers, like they want to have that quality.
Here, Ken, though, is just that Elgato's growth and the evolution of these products. I think obviously I think COVID pointed to is up, but like for example, this camera is designed for streamers, right? It's not designed for like people who want to do zooms per se.
Oh yeah.
Right. And I do think like that the fact that we can see hardware companies being able to respond to this space is probably an important signal, like for what's going on, I think in general. Let's see what else. Okay. So here's an article from the
Is it yours? Oh, it's yours. Mine. Okay.
And there's some backlash, right? I think a lot of people, the title of the article is why advertiser spending on influencers will reach $4 billion. From the information, Kai, how do you say Kaya's last name? Yuriev.
Yep.
And so she's talking about sort of some of the expectations and the growth of the influencer economy. And I think what's happened is, unfortunately, there is some resentment, I guess, around the idea of being an influencer, and even some of the articles we're going to cover later sort of speak to somehow this move away from influence. I think influence is on the spectrum of services or capabilities that a creator has to offer. And, you may sleep on it, but yeah, there's another $4 billion going out on influencers, on influencer advertising, and what is that? That's supposed to be by this year, right?
I think so. Yeah.
So it says influencer marketing.
Actually, by 2020, 4 billion. Well, it depends. Cause like it's over 4 billion. It's estimated to be over 4 billion by 2023, I think.
Yeah, it says by
But like,
2023, spending should rise to $4.6 billion.
yeah.
Now, here's the interesting thing. And I've been working on this longer thread, and I just haven't like had the time to focus on it. But when you put some of these numbers in context, right? There's $4 billion on influencer advertising specifically, right? There's something like 56 or $57 billion spent on social advertising, which is around our content. There's at least $6 billion that has been paid in by fans for direct support of creators. And that's a lowball number, I'm sure. Like that's literally just like subs on OnlyFans, Patreon, and Twitch, basically, right? That I'm adding up there. So that number is probably much greater than $6 billion. You start to see how this economy is falling out, but also you see what's left to pull, right? And so if we are transitioning, I think like there's an opportunity here to reimagine how that $59 million that gets deployed against Facebook and other places, and reimagining how it could be spent in more directly in the creator economy. So I think like there's been a hard push to look at how creators can directly monetize, but not always necessarily looking at how they can monetize advertising or some of the other dollars that are actually out there, because a lot of that push has been about how do I monetize the dollars from my fans, right? So still a tremendous amount of room in this ecosystem, but it's good to see some updated data on sort of where the spending is, because the older numbers were estimates up until like our current year. So some of this is, by the way, the stats are from eMarketer, so you can find that over on the eMarketer website as well. But yeah, keep an eye on it. Don't sleep. I guess like we need to stop having this like, us versus them, influencer versus creator sort of mindset, and just understand that there's a shared value between both of them. And another one, our friend Hugo over at Arm of Creators has a great post, very in-depth on how to invest in creators. So I highly recommend giving that a read. He talks about some of the struggles that are faced by creators, ultimately, I think, as founders. And so, and Ken, we have this question coming up in a bit, but, I think Hugo's post is really good. I actually had done a tweet storm earlier called Investing in Creators. I think Ken has a link to it as well, but we'll provide a link to that. And I outlined a number of different approaches, like on different ways that creators can raise money today. Hugo goes a little bit further, actually, and it's also a long form post. So I highly recommend it. It's a great read and has a lot of great information in there as well. So I think, but the idea of investing in creators is an important part of the ecosystem and the changes that we hope to see happen for creators. And I think ultimately for the startup landscape and for the ecosystem at large. So highly recommend taking a read at Hugo's post. Ken shared that out already. Mm-hmm. Now, this is probably the meatier part, and I'm glad we have some time, because I just did a long, I think it was like 15 or 20 tweet thread this morning, literally this morning, like at 5 a.m, I was posting it. There was 2 articles that came out, Ken. So why don't you provide some context here, and then I'll respond.
So there was this New Yorker article that in a weird way, and it's a very short post. It's like what they're in summary, they're basically equating, they're asking, are creators the equivalent of gig workers, right? Are the people that are selling whatever online on YouTube or on Instagram or trying to make a living, are they basically the equivalent of an Uber driver, a DoorDash delivery person, your TaskRabbit or anything like that? And then follow up later on was Ed Zitron, who Greg mentioned earlier, who writes these prolific pieces on his newsletter, whether it's on burnout or anything like that, but kind of responds to this. And you can see in the headline on the left, most creator economy companies just want to become the Amazon of creators content and convince you that your creativity isn't labor. It's an interesting take.
A bunch of nonsense.
So, Greg, are you? I think the New Yorker article is what Ed kind of takes the leap off of, but then he kind of dives into, he kind of expands and goes off on something slightly different, right? I mean, but it's still on the same vibe of this creator versus creator and gig work. Are creators and gig workers the same? But as you read down through Ed's piece, he's talking more about the platforms itself as opposed to the professions.
Right.
But of course,
Yeah.
you have strong opinions about both. So what are your thoughts? Well, what are your thoughts about the New Yorker article, and then what do you take issue with on Ed's?
So, and by the way, if you're listening and you want to chime in or have any thoughts for the conversation, by all means, we just raise your hand and let us know. Happy to have you. But all right. So first, with the New Yorker article, there's nothing wrong. For starters, there's nothing wrong with gig work. Right. What I think fundamentally, though, what I have a problem with sort of the New Yorker article is the framing that there's a difference between lack of access to real or meaningful or well-paying work and choosing the freedom of working when you want, right? Like, and now sometimes those things are the same. Like some people are in both those two things are overlapping. However, if you are choosing to work in this manner because that gives you the flexibility and the freedom to do other things in your life that you choose to do, it is not a negative per se, right? Like it is giving you and affording you the flexibility to do the things that you enjoy the most, right? If the reason that you are doing this work is because you literally cannot find other work, that reflects larger systemic problems, right? Like in our society and in our culture, where we haven't allowed created those opportunities or a safety net or a baseline for people, right? Now, one of the problems I have, for example, right? Like I think was Fiverr in Ed's post, or
I think the Fiverr was in Ed's post.
Okay, so I'll get to that in a sec. But let's use the Fiverr example. He sort of bemoans that Fiverr offered like a $5 plan. What I would argue is, number one, it made the number of people who would normally spend $0 on something significantly greater, right? Like now, everything on Fiverr is not $5. I don't know, like unless you like just literally read the name of it, until you get in there, it may start at $5, but the thing you're likely to buy is 25, 50, 100, right? Whether or not those people are actually always doing like discrete bespoke work for that amount of money also is not necessarily clear either all the time, right? There are people all over the world who are actually making way more money than they could in their local economies doing this kind of work. I think that's a great thing, right? Also, the existence of Fiverr did not eliminate or suppress the rates that anyone could earn doing their trade, right? Like, it's not like suddenly there weren't designers who didn't make $100 an hour because Fiverr exists, right? So in the ecosystem, if someone chooses a Fiverr, they do that for the convenience, for access to a clientele that they can't naturally reach, right? And they are negotiating their rates and someone is paying a fee, right? And in Fiverr, I believe like the buyer pays the fee, right? Yeah. But in different platforms, it's different ways, right? So there's nothing wrong with being in the gig economy, right? Like I do think like some people look down their nose, like that are in the creator space, because they think that somehow doing gig work is also a negative, right? Like, because like what you should be doing is aspiring and building audience. I'm not of that mind. I believe like that a founder, creator wanting to succeed, I would love to be paid to be doing things closer to the thing I want to be doing than things that are in the opposite direction, right? So I'm building a startup. I bootstrap it by consulting, but I consult for other companies in my space because I have the luxury of choosing, right? I could also like be driving an Uber to fund my startup. Now, do I begroan like Uber for existing because it's helping me fund this business because I want to spend time the way I want to spend it? No, that's not reasonable for me. Now, Ed's article covers a different part. Some overlaps a little bit, but covers some other things that I think are important, right? He sort of speaks to the problems and the challenges of platforms themselves. And there's a line he has in there, like he's like, there's nothing wrong with charging a fee, except he never makes the case for why you should charge the fee. And if I were to summarize what I think he was getting at, is that most platforms don't provide a tremendous amount of value. From his point of view, they are not providing enough value for the take rate that they are charging, right? And that's a reasonable, fair point of view, right? The argument I would make, however, is that to understand the value of take rates, you have to actually do a holistic look at what you're getting for that dollar amount, right? And we were talking about this yesterday. So I'll give you an example. Everyone says, oh, Twitch's take rate, I think, is very high, right? Like, now most people, from what I understand, it starts at 50. You can negotiate down usually to like maybe 30%, right? Either way, it's a third of your revenue, right? Mm-hmm. If I was a startup and I wanted to acquire customers, right? What I would have to do is run advertising, do organic marketing, and find other ways to acquire those customers and bring them in the door, right? I would have to deal with supporting those customers, their credit card issues. I would have to deal with chargebacks. I'd have to deal with churn, right? I would also still have to deliver the product, right? And so when you look at all of the costs that I'd also have to deal with hosting and streaming costs and, all the other pieces that Twitch takes care of. Now, I'm not saying Twitch is right. All I'm saying is that for us to fairly judge, is Twitch charging too much or too little? We would have to look at it from the point of view of what does it cost to recreate for me what Twitch is offering, right? Mm-hmm. And as any startup founder, trying to get 100 customers at $5 a month, that's like the dream that every one of us has, right? Like $105 a month customers is like amazing and more successful than 99% of most startups out there, right? Like, so creators are winning at being entrepreneurs, relatively speaking, right? And the cost is 30%. Well, guess what? If I sell equity in my company, what's the cost? It's like 50% of the upside, right? If I pay providers and out of pocket for all these discrete pieces, my costs also go down, right? Now, if I have to have more employees to handle or service all these other things, right? Suddenly my costs are going down also. So I guess my point is that, and the thread I wrote was not a defense of platforms per se, but I tried to unpack what goes into how a platform originator may think. And I also don't like the idea of being lambasted and rolled up with, we're just trying to convince creators that your creativity isn't labor. No, it is labor, but it is labor of love. Like, you are getting the job of being a founder and an entrepreneur and doing what you love, right? No one is saying that it is worth nothing, right? What I believe most platforms, certainly the platforms in my generation of the creator economy, maybe not like the Cameos and some of the others, right? Or the more established ones, right? But either way, we are trying to help creators succeed, right? Like, we are actually trying to find a good balance between the value we can offer them and also building something that is sustainable. Like, it doesn't help for me to give everything away if I then can't pay my team or the bills to support the service I'm giving away, right? And so the question of like, are creators gig workers? Far less so. In my mind, we should take the kid gloves off and start treating creators like founders. And guess what? No one has any sympathy for founders anywhere, right? Like, no one's saying that, like, as a founder, I deserve like a paycheck just because I'm a founder, right? Like, no one is saying that ever, right? No one is saying I deserve funding. No one is saying I deserve access to the press and free coverage. No one is saying I deserve reach, right? Like, I deserve distribution. These are all hard decisions. Everyone who goes to work as a creator has to work just as hard as someone who does a startup trying to figure out, how do I find my first customer, right? So I think it's more healthy for us to look at creators as entrepreneurs than it is for us to look at creators as gig workers or some special entitlement, right? That somehow is different than everyone else who wants to do what they love has to do and suffer through to succeed.
Cool. Anything else you want to say? I feel like you don't have a strong opinion on this. I'm not really sure what it is.
I guess, yeah, it really got me that the article. I couldn't put my finger on it. Like, after I read it a couple of times, and it just got to me that the blame here is one-sided. It's like, blame the platforms for taking advantage of the creators, but not saying, hey, creators, you are business owners. Where is your responsibility in the process of getting to where you want to go? Right now, I get, like, if someone's got their boot on your throat and they're forcibly preventing you from getting there, I understand that. Like, I'm pro reducing these rates and getting to a healthier place, right? But not blindly. Like, Apple's 30%, it feels egregious because it's on top of all the other company who's trying to offer you value. And we know, for example, that 30% could be like 3%, like Stripe offers it at, right? For the exact same processing, et cetera, right? So we clearly know Apple's just got it fully padded. However, Apple does, and like I said, definitely not defending Apple, but they do pay a tremendous workforce to like approve applications, review code, do all these other processes, right? That don't just happen for free. Right. And if we were instead having to buy every download, we would feel very differently, right? Than the fact that we get them for free. And the thing I point out in the thread is that most creators like haven't reached a maturity level per se. Some of the, they nibble around the edges here, but where they're like, I should be actively investing in growing this, not relying on the networks to do it, and then complaining that the networks are charging something for helping me do it. Right. And there's never going to be a perfect solution here per se, but I think like everyone needs to come to the table to try to deliver better solutions here.
Cool. And I'd be very interested to hear what other people have to say. I know, Greg, you've posted this on the Creator of Means Discord as well. You've put this out as a Twitter thread. But those that are watching, those that are listening, let us know what you think. Do you agree with the New Yorker article? Do you agree with Ed Zitron's post? Do you agree with Greg's opinion overall? Or do you just want, Greg to continue to riff and pontificate about stuff and wave his hands wildly in the air? I probably would want to opt for the latter. But let us know. Put it in the,
I did just share the link. If you want to join us on the show, I shared the invite link. So feel free to come on, join the conversation with us. I know, Arnold, you're awake and watching.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know Arnold had a comment earlier on about YouTube, but yeah, Arnold, come on board.
What's your opinion, Ken? Like, where are you in the spectrum?
So I think this is kind of like this is a bigger issue overall. I think there's certainly a lot of blame on the platforms for many other reasons, especially with their developer tax or just their tax in general on users. Do I begrudge them for making money? No, but when you look at it, and let's keep in mind, right now we are in earnings season, and you look at like, oh, Twitter made like X billion dollars, or Snap made this much, and Apple will rake in, there'll be articles about Apple's earnings where they say, oh, Apple now has X billion dollars in the, in cash, excess cash, right? I mean, it's like they're just raking it out. They're basically Scrooge McDuck, right? In DuckTales, where he dives into this pile of this vault of gold.
You're the one bringing up Scrooge McDuck.
Wow, really? Like, you don't have to be old for that. And plus, let me remind you, DuckTales has been revived or rebooted or whatever, modernized on TV now, and it's very weird compared to days of old. I mean, back after you left, when you came home from school, you watched afternoon cartoons. Anyways, but it's like they're raking in the dough. They're not reinvesting into things. So it'd be very interesting to see. Like, I think there has to be, it's like, who's standing up for creators? I am not of the mindset of, hey, give the creators, like carte blanche and power to the people type of thing, right? Because that's like this should not be like a socialist type of thing. They don't deserve a hand. I completely agree. No universal creator, basic creator income, whatever we're that phrasing is now. And I agree that creators should be entrepreneurs. I don't know about I think it's just this whole labeling thing, because we're talking about like, oh, do you want to be, are you an influencer? Are you a creator? And I know that I think it was a Neil earlier on who's helped us identify like what the difference is between the two. Like, entrepreneurs frown upon, influencers, and frown upon creators, and creators, everyone frowns upon gig workers, and it's like this divisive nature in us, as opposed to like, can't we all just be considered entrepreneurs in some right? And we were all trying to make a living beyond conventional means, right? On traditional means. Like, I'm thankful. I mean, for me, I'm on the traditional route, but it's like I'm also in a way having have my foot into this entrepreneur route with joining you on this show, right? And who knows where this goes. I consider myself a creator and an entrepreneur to kind of help this blossom. But am I going to be like Greg, like, oh, I look down on you because why don't you join a traditional company and make your make a solid salary and have a easier job? But I also envy what you're doing because you're taking you have this idea and you're taking it to fruition, right? You have this idea of how to help people and to build a product that will change the world or impact an entire industry. And it's like those that don't teach, right? And it's like that adage. So it's like, how can I hate on you as a creator when I'm not willing to do it myself, right? So it's like yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say Arnold joined us also.
Yep. Arnold, are you there?
Hey there guys, how's it going?
Hey Arnold, What's going on?
Nothing much. Good morning.
Good morning.
I get the blood flowing early in the morning, but how did you have any thoughts, Arnold? Did you want to chime in? Arnold here is the founder of Hand Glide, by the way, in case folks haven't had a chance to meet Arnold yet.
Yeah, hi everybody. Yeah, no,
it's not as fun as Zealous, obviously, but
see, we're talking about like creators and entrepreneurs. Now you're just talking about like entrepreneur/creators just butting heads. Like, let's get it on.
Well, no, Ken, it's entrepreneurs like fighting to each other to help creators. That's what we're doing here.
we need creator deathmatch. Bring that back, claymation, that thing. Right?
We already have the boxing match to deal with first. All right.
Hey, no.
But Arnold, so you're building a platform. You're doing it. You have obviously you're doing a transactional kind of take rate.
Yeah.
In the process, we talked about this when we chatted the first time. Like, I know from my point of view, I would do a SaaS if I believed that the market would bear it, right? But having enough sophisticated users who understand and are willing to invest in these things now, it feels like I was telling Matt this yesterday. If the more we all of us go towards SaaS, we all end up chasing the same 250,000 people, right? As opposed to like 50 million that are out there that are trying to grow.
No, so I think the first point is I completely agree with your I guess your thought process. Creators are founders too, right? Even if they don't realize it,
Mm-hmm.
So I get to talk to a lot of creators, all the time, just kind of talking about what we do and how we can help them and just the business overall, right? And we do talk through some of that. Like obviously we are a platform and we have to have a take rate too, just to keep the business running. But another piece of that though is that we're not running ads, right? It's just about creators and their fans, and so we have to make money too to keep the lights on. And so it's a lot of sort of helping creators understand to some degree why we need to take the percentage that we need to take it and basically explain where it's going, right? Because I think that's a part of it as well. I think there's a lot more, I guess, comfort around knowing where that cash is going, and specifically having it, very transparently laid out, like what you're paying for, right? And I think it's easier for them to understand. Well, if I did this myself, then it's effectively the same cost, right? If not more.
I think it's way more, right? Like,
yeah. Well,
I think,
good.
Yeah, look, like you've got a team of 2 working for a year, building software, managing services, supporting like all these pieces. For your individual creator to try to replicate, especially like just starting out, like that's the ladder that we can provide, right?
Well, no, absolutely, and it doesn't stop, right? Yeah, and it doesn't. It's not like you build it and then it just works, right? Like every day we're pushing new stuff. We're talking about new ideas to actually better support creators and help them to earn even more, right? So it's a business. It's an ongoing thing, and it costs a lot of money, and so. I guess at the end of the day, the idea is you can either replicate that yourself and basically fund that, or you can pay somebody. They're effectively paying us almost like as a consultant, right, to do that work for you, right? So I think again, maybe it's just maybe a matter of more transparency and where these fees are going. I will say, and I want to just on the Apple point that you brought up, I think that's one that is a bit tougher because. Maybe some of that transparency is not exactly there, which is why it's harder to see where's this 30% going and why is that so high, right? So I think that's maybe more why that gets picked on, certainly.
Well, I think it's also because there's an analog, right? Like for Apple, we know what the analog is, right? Like we can see what credit card, like Stripe charges, right? For essentially the exact same service, right? Like to process a credit card, Apple says it's 30% and Stripe says it's 3%, right? Like, and fine, we're like, you run the network or whatever, fine, like maybe that's another 10%, but either way, that's still like another 3%. And I think like, to your point about transparency, we're sort of just like awareness of the business models. It's better if Apple is like, okay, well, if you share your agreements with us, with your creator, and then we'll take it out of what you were actually making, right? Like it's a different benefit. Like I think as a provider, I'm okay to give them a third of what I'm going to charge, but having to take a third off the top, your thing becomes a 40% take rate by default if you run it in an app. Right? Because like it's 30 for Apple, 10 for you. And then now the creator's left with 60%.
Well, no, and I think you see this across several models, right? I know there's several other startups that have run into this, you know, from Fan House, even up to Cameo, right? Like this is the thing where it's actually hurting creators with that model, right? And I think most founders, pretty much every founder in this space that is building tools for creators would gladly take that approach to say, listen, take that money from me and let our creators have the bigger lion's share, right? We'll offer more value. We'll figure out a way. We'll be okay, right? We'll get more customers on it and we'll survive that. But the model doesn't work. To your point, if you know you've got somebody taking 30% and then the platform has to take 10 to 15, I mean, where you know the value just isn't there. I don't think so.
But I think in a weird way, I kind of agree with that New Yorker article about in terms of that gig economy type of analogy.
Where's the mute button? Let's get rid of this guy.
And now this is being hosted by Arnold and Greg. See, Arnold, you come on the show and you totally change it up once again. Thank you very much.
All right, tell us how which part you agree with.
I agree with it. We're gig workers. When you look at the struggle, the struggles that Uber drivers, delivery Postmates, Lyft, DoorDash, they were all upset about the take that these platforms have from the sales, right? Like you can order like a $10 meal from like a restaurant. Out of that $10, the actual meal might cost you $7, right? So that goes to the restaurant, and that remaining $3, you as a courier or delivery person might only get maybe like not even $1, maybe like you know a quarter or 50 cents of that, right? A fraction of that, and the percentage of that the rest of it will go to the company, right? So this is I agree with the analogy of the gig workers in that there's that struggle that what you guys are talking about with the tax, for the developer tax, the creator tax, whatever this tax is. I think it's all encompassing tax. It's the same thing that what they're doing with delivery drivers and couriers as well. So I don't think that's that's pretty much the main. I don't know necessarily if that's the point of the main point that they wanted to get across in the New Yorker article, but I mean I know that they're upset about those type of things as well.
And look, I think that's absolutely reasonable. Like I said, it's not a defense of platforms per se, right? Like I think like one of my tweets in here is that I said that platforms can harm creators because they proxy relationships between creator and audience. They hold data secret and captive. They deliver features that benefit their business first. They build for the least common denominator. They change terms and usage at will, and they may go out of business, right? And like all of those are reasons that platforms actually can purposefully or inadvertently cause harm, right? But the consumer, right, who wants the convenience of not going to that restaurant is the one making the choice to pay it, right? Like, so now I'm like you take an Uber. How many times had Uber been sued though, right? Like, so like the litigation to enable Uber in so many markets, and like, and I get a lot of people hate Uber also, right? But the point is that it's not free to run Uber, right? Like now they should treat their folks better because they have people working, like actually working for them, right? Mm-hmm. As a creator, you're not working for YouTube. YouTube doesn't say like, hey, you haven't posted this week, you owe us money, right? Like you're the founder opting into doing that kind of posting. It's very different than like Uber saying like, well, you only make this money, or you can work 40 hours a week, but we're not going to, like, basically we treat you an employee. We add these incentives and stack it so that it's sustainable, right? Like if Uber wants to take 50% and you don't like it, then find the alternative to Uber, right? That operates for less, or go get trained and become a taxi driver and pay 30% or whatever it's going to be. Like there are always alternatives, right? Like the market is there, but the market is always moving, right? What we've seen in our space, right, in the creator economy, is that there's shifting here. Like take rates are going down. I don't believe it's necessarily reasonable for it to be like a complete race to the bottom. Like, here's the thing. If every creator would acknowledge that they should spend money on this software and buy it like enterprises and SMBs buy things, most of us would probably be like, fine, we won't have a take rate, right? Yeah. Like you paid a transaction fee, and that's it. Like now, for example, like the way Spore does it, the way we do it, you're building a subscription, your own entity. So on Stripe. So like you connect your Stripe account and we run through there, right? And then the fee that we charge, right, for example, with Zealous, is to provide you the software and the scale and the streaming and the support and the constant development. Now, if you think you can just like want to switch to Zoom and just start doing that, like, okay, like that's on you to make that choice. And maybe you reclaim that 10% back, right? You won't have all the other features or benefits that we have because that's what we offer. That's our business, right? I do think like we've talked about this in the past, some of the interesting things happening are like the lifetime limits or annual limits and stuff like that. I think are all powerful constructs, for us to potentially leverage, right? Like, and continue to evolve. But I do think this conversation is only good and useful if both sides are chatting, not one side giving in, right, to the whims of the other. And I mean that from both ends, right?
Yeah, but Greg, I think that there's two thoughts that come to mind. One, with I think the larger platforms, like you mentioned Uber, right? And I think some of the challenges that come up there, for me at least, it comes down to transparency, because it's not so much that they don't have the same cost, underlying cost to actually run the service. I think it's more about when the drivers don't feel like they're being properly compensated or taken care of, and then Uber's posting billions of dollars in revenue. And that's an excess revenue of what they've already sort of, operating costs and things like that. Then I think, people start to feel like, wow, that's a lot of money and you guys are not really taking care of us too. So what's going on? I think the same argument could probably be made about the Apple tax as well, right?
I'm with you. So, and I made a point to Alec, who was commenting on the thread. And Matt has a great comment here as well. I'm going to get to that one sec. But the comment I made to Alec is that also, if we change the way our businesses are funded, not just the creator side, like I said, this is not a one-side thing. If we are not in like raising money from venture, then the types of moves we make become different, right? Like it is the outcomes of being public or having venture-backed sort of aspirations, right? Like that actually will drive you to these larger things. So guess what? If you go to try to raise money and you're like, I'm a SaaS in the creator space, you're going to get laughed out the room, right? Like unless you're like a low value SaaS and already proven that everybody's already buying it. But to Matt's point, what most people don't understand is majority of creators don't like paying monthly fees for products, right? Just ask Linktree, he said, right? Linktree signs up 36,000 people a day, or is it an hour or some ridiculous thing like that, right? And like only 5% are paying, right? Like everyone wants everything for free. And then they don't understand that for us to provide those things for free, we somehow have to make money. Now, if we don't raise venture money, maybe it's less money because it's like literally more supportive of like a very small team as opposed to like massive aspirations, right? But either way, like, so when you're right, like when an Uber is getting a hit in the head, why are they getting hit in the head? Because they're posting huge things. They're returning tons of money to investors. Their founders are cashing out dollars, right? Like that's on the backs of creators. I absolutely get that. Apple has $1 trillion in the bank or something ridiculous, right? Like, yes, I get it, right? Like you literally don't need it more, right? But folks like me and you, Arnold, like where we're using our savings, we're bootstrapping to get there, right? Like having a small take rate now actually means not raising money, because if we wait for SaaS, we'll never get there, right? Like it'll just take us too long. Like we either have to raise external money and then bring on the expectations of a third party, right? Or we could work with with other creators and say, great, let's partner up. And then like, let's work through how to like make this sustainable and something that you can stick with.
No, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, again, like they're I think even you kind of mentioned like the race to the bottom, right? And you've seen that with, I think, who is it? Like Facebook recently came out, and with some of their features, it's like $0 until some future time.
But it's not zero. Yeah.
Well, yeah. But I mean, I think when you have those models, something's got to give, right? It's either going to be more ads, right, to support that, or to your point, more venture dollars, which to some degree can take away from the core mission, right? Because then it's just about speed and getting more people on versus the value you're actually providing to the creator. So really, you've got to, I don't know, like you've got to charge something to provide the value that I think you're trying to provide as a founder in this space. And and it's just, I think it's tough to help folks understand.
We're all navigating it. So I just found the article a little unfair because it just lumped everybody together as like, we're just trying to destroy the space and take advantage of creators. And that's like fundamentally, for most of the people I've met in this domain, that is not how I would characterize their intentions and their actions, right? But in any event, Arnold, thank you for joining us. Always a pleasure. We'll see you next week, I'm sure.
Thank you guys for letting me jump on. This was great.
You bet.
Nice seeing you.
Yeah.
All right, Ken. So let's wrap it up here. Up next week, by the way, we do have Antonio Gary Jr. From Spore is going to be joining us. I'm sure we'll carry on some parts of this conversation as well with him.
Well, he was mentioned in Ed's post.
He's mentioned in the Spore's mentioned in the post. That's right. Yep. We've got a lot of great content coming up. We're off the first week of August, by the way, and then Jim Louderback will be our first guest shortly after that. More and more continues. If you want to be a guest on the show, head over to createdeconomy.com. There's a link there for you to sign up. And thank you so much for being here with us. Ken, I got to run. I'm late for a call, but
as always,
it's a good convo. I hope folks got, something out of it. We'd love to hear what you think. Tell us in the comments, join us next time on stage, whatever it is. We just want to hear more from you. This is a dialogue between all of us and I appreciate it. So have a great weekend if we don't see you or hear you before then.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, everybody.